Well, this fella now who has joined us turned a hobby into a major social force in this nation with only a few spare parts, and not him personally, but a few spare parts at home and a soldering iron. He privately designed and built what has become a revolution in the home, the Apple Computer series. Would you greet Stephen Wozniak? You're very famous, Stephen.
I thought it was, at first it was just computer stuff.
Yeah. You've enjoyed your money in your life, haven't you? I mean, you've given us a rather large music festival. I don't know how you made out on that, but it was one of the biggies of all time.
Sure, honest to God, I just believed in something, and I thought it was a good idea for the time. Let's go out and create a good product.
Yeah.
And it was not a financial success, but boy, the product was good.
Yeah. What'd you lose?
What did I lose? I don't want to talk about it.
10 million.
It's embarrassingly
10
high.
million,
There were actually two festivals.
Right.
Each one of them were large losses, but we finally pinpointed some of the information we needed to know in that site.
But what's a loss, Stephen? Look what you've done in your lifetime. How did the Apple come about?
Well, pretty much it was just experiment. In the days back when no company thought it was going to be a large market with a lot of dollars to gain, it was a lot of hobbyists talking about the upcoming home computer revolution. And to them, the home computer was like to a ham radio operator who's got a soldering iron and all that. The home computer, by definition, had wires going to your oven and translated your recipes into it. And that's what they did. That's what a lot of us did. But we went down and started socializing, and we started a club, and every 2 weeks was the most important day of our lives to tell what we were doing, what we could offer other people. If we needed help, we'd raise our hand and ask for help on a certain problem. If others had something to offer, they'd offer it. It was just give to help others. And I started creating computers just to show off. Here's a nifty, neat computer. I feel that this is really neat. And eventually a friend of mine came by and suggested we start a company. And after we figured out we'd probably lose our money, at least we knew we'd have a company for once in our lives, and that made it worth it.
Then you're content being the inventor, the tinkerer, rather than the great, brilliant businessman, marketing genius.
Right.
Do you know anything about that part of the business?
Based on backgrounds at other companies I'd worked for and how they had treated, and basically the management had stated that it was okay to be an engineer your whole life. To those of us who that was the most pure thing in the world, designing the perfect circuit, writing the perfect program, doing all the optimizations, you want to do that your whole life. I decided when we started becoming successful that I would not go into management at Apple. I am not a run the company type person. Because I made the choice. I just want to be an engineer, and I want to sit down and write my own code and come up with clever algorithms and even play games on the computer.
Do you tinker every day? You'll excuse the expression.
Well, my typical day...
I could probably come up with something a little more technical than that.
Yes. No, generally, I do travel a lot. I talk about a lot of what we've done to interested computer user groups, but I sit down late at night when my children are finally asleep, and I was crying during JJ's that excellent excerpt. He goes to bed, and I get on the computer, and I start running at least all of the current software, the programs that are coming out, try some of the new hardware that you can plug in, and just see how neat everything works, and where the state of the art and what the standards are that are evolving. And that's a big thing in my life. Sometimes I write my own code.
You never try to break into the Pentagon missile system.
It's an interesting story. It's an interesting story because there's this big, huge myth that got evolved about hackers with personal computers being so smart that somehow they can invade computers that have valuable and vital information. But it's a total lie, and it's a myth. And there are no valuable and vital information sources that are really ever tampered with. You won't even find $1,000 worth of fines in the whole history of this country because all these kids just get onto public accounts, they play, but they're very cautious. It's a hacker ethic. They do not destroy anything, and they do not have access to any sort of military computers. They're all protected by the proper keys, which are called passwords. It's a big myth that we built up, and it's interesting to have this intrigue in our heads and think that the kids are the sort of people who rip off billions of dollars by embezzling. But an accountant always had the key to the vault. Now he's got the password to the computer. He will still always embezzle. Yeah, so that's unfortunate.
They can't embezzle.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But, still, I like to explore a lot of little things. Getting some hidden information is the most incredible thing in the world to a child. But I'm like that. Getting something that was a little bit secret. You weren't supposed to have gotten quite to, or it's incredible that you got. You can share it with others even. And, we have a satellite receiver at our house. And it was really interesting yesterday to start tuning across with a little audio shortwave receiver on the line and heard all these phone calls. The guys talking about the girls they picked up that day. And
I think he's having more fun than all of us. Hey, you are also known as a practical joker. I mean, in your early days...
Yes.
Pre-Apple, you did some strange things.
Even no, very very big major ones, even post Apple. But now that I'm too much well known a celebrity, it's very difficult for me to go in and because I get recognized, so I don't do as many.
Did you start in the Bay Area, the Dial a Joke?
Right, I did the first one in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it was based upon when I was a phone freak and I had figured out all these little boxes that put tones into the phones and call anywhere in the world. I did that with a friend, and we would call all over the world all night long. But then when we went to make the calls that we were going to make anyway, we paid for them. We didn't use the box to save money on the calls that we had to make. So we were probably the most pure phone freaks ever. But I discovered dial-a-jokes in the Los Angeles area.
Right.
So, boy, as soon as I got out of college that year and I was working at Hewlett-Packard, I decided to set up a little answering machine in my apartment in Cupertino. And sure enough, you know, it got up to 2,000 calls a day. And the phone company went crazy because anybody who had a number that was one digit different would get 50 to 100 wrong numbers come into their house. And then I would switch the number and somebody else would get it. And then I'd get an easy number and I would discover a business would be afraid to answer their phones. And I got to know the phone company very well.
They're not hearing this for the first time. They know who it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. But what kind of jokes did you do?
Pretty much ethnic jokes, the short little ethnic jokes that were going around in the early 70s. Polish, Italian, Irish, Jewish, black, white, student, teacher, old folks, young folks. I collected all the books and I was very good at the jokes and I could carry them on for hours. And you know, my favorites were Polish jokes.
Wozniak?
Yeah.
Polish?
Yeah.
Weren't you honored by the Polish American Society?
I'm being honored in the upcoming month. I'm being and they were an organization that basically got very mad at me and threatened to sue me 10 years ago.
And do
I
they know who they're
I did
honoring?
it just for humor, but they said it was okay if I told Italian jokes. So.
Do they know who they're honoring?
They don't know
the
that.
guy. They're hearing it
They
now
know
for
it
the
now.
first time. They're honoring the guy that they asked to
But I intend to
desist.
be, yeah, but I intend to be, you know, a good image for young Polish people in the country, even though I'm American more than Polish.
Yeah. Stephen, tell us. I think the most fascinating thing is what you're working on right now.
What I'm working on right now.
So we
believe it
can
or
all
not-
invest.
Believe it or not, Apple is working on great things, and I believe in Apple.
Yeah.
But
You don't administrate Apple.
I don't administrate Apple. I do just participate pretty much in a level in discussions on occasion, what products are going on, and I'll give my opinions about what makes sense. I come from a strong, hacker ethic background, a lot of openness and build on what others have done, etc. A lot of pretty much my workings at Apple, socially, I was all so important and so creative and so autonomous when we were just two people. And you come from that background, all of a sudden you can't really work out well in a very organized, structured groups where you got to file all these, get authorizations and go through levels, and it takes 2 years to do a project instead of 3 months. You can't go back to that in a company. I can work that way, but not in a company where you had this sort of background. So I pretty much work independently on projects that I'm interested in, and not all of them have, they make sense as like an Apple product thinking, but that's how my life works in computers. I want to work on a neat little algorithm, or even figure out how to take a 2-line program and shorten it by 3 characters, or do all the little tricks that we computer people who just love to search for these perfectly pure math solutions. It's like math puzzles. I encourage anyone who gets a computer to, if you really turn out to be interested in it, start studying and read some books, but eventually get a math puzzles book and try to just write the programs that would solve this, and you're going to be one of the finest programmers ever.
I love it. Stephen Wozniak, Apple Computers. And we'll come right back.